I have come to believe, to imagine that the complex challenges we face as human beings are not solvable with the domesticated and some would say colonized minds that we have grown to have these days. And so this week, this is Dale Byron, Heartwork podcast, and I want to talk exactly about that. And of course, we'll talk about poetry's role in rewilding the human mind, which is the metaphor and image that has really captivated my own imagination and attention. So I made a few notes for myself, and I think it's happening to all of us these days. Our minds are increasingly domesticated. You could say taken over by clocks, by strategies, by markets, by algorithms, by conformity. And of course, we need some of that. We need some of that for productivity and just control and living our lives, of course. However, given the complex challenges that we face these days more and more around climate, ecological overshoot, loneliness at a very human level, vulnerability to demagogues at a political level, their politics of scapegoating, that these domesticated minds or our domesticated minds are proving disastrous in the face of those kinds of challenges. Now, I was thinking that, what's the cost if we sort of dig into this metaphor of the domesticated mind, that we see that narrow boundary thinking is one of the big challenges. A loss of awe, we can think of it that way. This separation from the living world, which I believe is the idea that has gotten us into deep trouble. And I think this is one of the signs of a truly domesticated mind, is feeling like we are somehow separate from the so-called natural world. And also easily being manipulated by power. And so our challenges, I think, these that I've just described are unsolvable with the same tamed, narrow thinking that created them. And I was thinking also, what is a rewilded mind? If we're going to just step back or fly over at 30,000 feet. And these are some of the things that I have imagined. It's not really some kind of feral chaos. It's more a restored perception, a belonging, a stepping back into our imaginative powers. It is a kind of kinship at our minds feel a kind of and think a kind of kinship to rivers, birds, ancestors, even children, strangers. It's also a mind that is in tune or attuned, in tune as well, with reason and logic and all of that. Of course, we need all of that, but a rewilded mind is one that is also connected to our intuition and to mystery itself. And the rewilded mind is one that doesn't just imagine that we are consumers. And that is a very, that's a sign of a domesticated mind. When we think of ourselves, when you think of yourself as primarily a consumer, then I would say that is a sign of a domesticated mind rather than a rewilded mind, which imagines this connection and being participants in a great living web. And so now we want to talk about poetry, and I want to give an example today, of course. How do we answer the question that poetry is a or how do we prove the assertion that poetry is a perfect rewilding tool? Well, I have some thoughts on that as well. The first thing is that poetry interrupts this domesticated language. Instead of jargon, it kind of bends grammar, moves words or asks words to step forward in a different way. It startles with images, with metaphors, slips past the strategic mind directly to the heart. That's what it does. It also honors ambiguity. Poetry is really good at being able to accept paradox and ambiguity, and it expands our awareness instead of narrowing it. It also reawakens our senses. And here I'm talking about coming back to now, coming back to our senses, to our touch and smell and the sounds in the world. And it does all of that. Sometimes I say that poetry, good poetry, rewilds us by putting the roots back on our lives and back on the material that we and the wonderful material that surrounds us, puts the roots back on. It also rewiles us by surprising us. Human beings need a certain amount of predictability, but we also need that moment of surprise, and poetry brings that. It also keeps us human, I think. Poetry preserves tenderness and grief and love and gratitude, really the glue of human community, even while, as they say, reconnecting us to our non-human kin. So here is the poem I brought for us today. It's by Antonio Machado, the great Spanish poet. This interpretation is by Robert Bly, and I think this is a perfect example. But first, what I want to do is I want to read some language, which is almost seems like a parody, but this really is true. This is the kind of language that is used often in what I would call highly domesticated corporate mission statements. Just let's sink into this language for a minute before the poem. Our mission, says the mission statement, our mission is to maximize shareholder value by delivering innovative solutions that leverage synergies across multiple verticals while ensuring compliance and operational efficiency. Now, again, that sounds like a parody, a joke, but that's actually language that is used all too often in corporate speak. I would say the ultimate kind of domesticated and deadening, jargon heavy language where nothing is alive in that. Nothing is alive. Now, let's contrast that with this poem by Antonio Machado, Last Night as I Was Sleeping. And it goes like this. Last night as I was sleeping, last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous air, that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me? Water of a new life that I have never drunk. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous air, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous air, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night, as I slept, I dreamt marvelous air, that it was God I had here inside my heart. Last night, as I slept, I dreamt marvelous air, that it was God I had here inside my heart. Here inside my heart. Now that's Antonio Machado. And I would argue that that kind of language, with that wonderful, the wonderful images, the sounds, the feeling that this poem gives us, and the way that it transforms this idea of error, marvelous error, and it breaks open, we could say, the cage of rational control. Marvelous error. Just the feeling of that, of being able to declare that. And I would say that rational control is not bad until it becomes a monopoly. And in our domesticated minds, one sign is that rational, logical, linear thought has completely taken over. It's like there's been a palace coup and it's taken over everything. And so that our intuitions, our felt sense of the world, our imaginations, all of that is being shunned to the side. And more, it is my belief that we need great, wonderful poetry to help us rewild our minds so that we are able to bring all our human capacities, not only our ideas and our intellect, which we need, of course, but also our heart, our intuitions, our imaginations. All of it we need if we are going to step into the world in different ways, working with all these complex challenges that we face, ecological, political, sociological, all of those. All of those. So thank you very much for your listening ear. Until next time and next poem, as we continue to rewild ourselves, take good care of yourself. And if you can, someone else.